Hi, everybody. My name is Debbie, and I am an alcoholic. Just so you know, I'm not here because I want to be. My sponsor threw me under the bus and then went on vacation. So, this is new. I don't normally do this. My sobriety date is October 10th of 1990, and for 31 years I've managed not to have to do this. So, what it was like. Once upon a time, long, long ago, let me see. So I grew up, I was born and raised in Pasadena, and when I was 5, my little brother was born and he had asthma, so we moved to Friendswood. So I grew up in Friendswood. Everybody had horses. We had oil fields. Got my truck stuck in the oil fields a lot, probably because I was drinking a lot while I was driving. I grew up I'm the oldest of 4 children. My dad just wanted a boy, just wanted a boy, just wanted a boy. And they kept trying, and finally on the 4th kid, he got a boy. My brother was gay. My father had a very hard time with that. So I learned to hunt, and I learned to work on my truck, and I rebuilt engines and transmissions and played lots of sports. And so I was definitely, and I learned to ride motorcycles at a very young age. So my neighbors had motorcycles and they rode BMX. And so the rule in my house was don't ever get on those motorcycles. So as soon as my parents would leave, I would go ride the motorcycles. No, y'all, I understand. Y'all know nothing about being rebellious. So don't really know what the deal was between my parents, but we ended up in a very unhappy home. And in my childhood, it was a very abusive childhood. It was very physically abusive. It didn't matter if it was the belt, the boot, or the broom. And whatever was closest is what we got hit with. And if my father couldn't figure out who did it, we all got it. And I think I just learned to be angry very young. And when I was 16 years old, I was date raped by my very first boyfriend. And so, once again, I learned how to be very angry very young. And the solution to that evening was I went to my neighbors and we got high. That was what she did. She fixed me. I'm like, okay. So, as a kid, we would sit in the living room with Dad on Sunday watching football games, and it's Debbie, go get me a beer, and I'd pop the beer, I'd drink half of it before I got to him, right? And that was very acceptable in my home. And when I was 16 years old, I was able to buy liquor. I guess I looked older than I was, I don't know. So anyway, 18 was the legal age then, and I was able to buy beer. What I can tell you is I did not do well in school. We had open campus, and so me and my best friend, who was like the salutatorium, and here I am, last 25% of the class, we would go have chug-a-lug contests at lunch. And then I'd have to go sit in English class. And then we wondered why I had to repeat English. So in my yearbooks, my sister said this like a year or so ago. She's like, how come your picture's not in your class for the yearbook? I said, well, I had to take summer school to walk the stage that year. So I had to double up on credits in order to walk the stage with my class. And I did, but I had to work at it. But drinking was my solution to a lot of things very young. And I just knew how to run. I knew how to run. I knew how to hide. I knew how to not feel. I knew how to, I was just a party girl. I didn't stay connected to people for very long. That might require a commitment. But what I can tell you is my story is probably not a lot different from a lot of yours. We all know how to do all of that stuff. Finally, at the age of 24, I got married. My family thought I was going to be an old maid because I'm the oldest of 4 kids who finally got married. Because in my home, the job was graduate high school, get married, have babies. I was not that girl. I did not fit the mold. And so my parents just couldn't figure that out. But as soon as I was 18, I moved to Spring, and they all lived in Friendswood. And so whenever a holiday came around, a birthday, I always drove down there because I really didn't want them in my business. Really didn't want them to know much about me. And that was how I hid from my family. At the age of 24, I got married. I thought that he was my Prince Charming. I was the Cinderella. It was, I traveled all over the world. I had anything I could want. I lived in a big house. It was amazing. And what happened was, it's all his fault. I got introduced to drugs again because alcohol was my friend. I would come home from work and I would justify having a drink, And if you lived like I lived, you could have a drink too, Moved into my husband's home with his 2 children. My stepdaughter is 5 years younger than me. My stepson is 10 years younger than me. And so it was a very fun house to be in. I would be at work and my stepdaughter would come in from school wearing my clothes into the office and I'm like, hello? Anyway, she was like having a little sister. What I can tell you today is I'm very close still to my stepdaughter and I never called her my stepdaughter. So she saw me through the worst part of my life to today. And even still today, I spend time with her. This marriage did not last long. Once the drugs came into the picture, it was not a good. It's not what I wanted to do with my life, and I didn't know how to get out. And so he got arrested and went to jail for his 3rd count of possession, and I went to detox. Because I didn't want to live like this anymore. And I can remember telling him, I'm going to go to the treatment center. And his solution was just to offer me something because he knew I wasn't sober. And that's not how I wanted to live anymore. And I literally packed up my son and he and I moved out to living with my aunt and uncle because I couldn't live like this anymore. It was the hardest thing I ever did. But I went and lived with my aunt and uncle for about 90 days, thinking he's the problem. And I can remember it's my best friend's birthday. We're going to go out with the girls for drinks after work. And finally, 3 days later, here I am on a bender. And I'm like, I had this aha moment sitting in the driveway after I took my son to school that I am no longer controlling my drinking and drugging. They're controlling me. And that is not who I wanted to be. And so I went to treatment, and I had no insurance, and I had no money. And I was like, what can you do for me? I really want to do this. And so I was this treatment facility's very first outpatient, and they didn't know how it was going to work, and I didn't know how it was going to work. But I went to outpatient 5 nights a week. Went to a meeting every day for 18 months because I didn't know how to go home and make dinner without pouring a glass of wine. I didn't know how to have a weekend with my son at the pool or washing the car or whatever without drinking. So I literally went to a meeting every day for 18 months. What they told me when I got here was to go to 90 meetings in 90 days, get a sponsor, and work the steps. My first sponsor fired me. Doesn't she know who I am? So I did. I went to meetings. I got a sponsor. Oh, I'm supposed to work. Oh, I'm supposed to call her. That was the most. So it was really humiliating, that she fired me. And I'm like, I thought I was going to drink because now my link is broken. I don't have a sponsor. I'm supposed to have all three of those things. So immediately I get one more sponsor. What I can tell you in 31 years is I've had 7 sponsors. And all of my sponsors have either died or moved away. So I'm very lucky in the sense that they put up with my crap. They tell me the truth. They make me do shit I don't want to do. Oh, they make me do stuff I don't want to do. And I can tell you, when I got here, I knew nothing. I knew nothing about sobriety. I knew nothing about not drinking today. I just didn't know how to not drink today. And my entire day was all about getting ready to go to a meeting for about the first 30 days. My first year in sobriety, I was losing my home in a foreclosure. I was filing for divorce. I was going to court for a DWI. I was going to court for assaulting an officer.
Go, girl.
Got in a wreck on Westheimer before I went to the treatment center. Got in a wreck on Westheimer. Someone hit me coming out of a parking lot, and I had been in a bar and walked out with a hurricane under my jacket. Of course, there's liquor everywhere. I'm sure I'm reeking. And I'm trying to tell the cops it's all his fault, but I don't have his license. So, went to... So the story with assaulting an officer is the cop kept saying, "Ma'am, do you have your ID?" "Yes, your partner has it." Third time he asked, "Ma'am, do you have your ID?" I said, "She's got it." And I went to reach for it, and she yanked her arm out, and when she did, I grabbed her. And my fingernails were quite long then, and I put a little smiley on her arm, and we had to hurry up and get to the police station so they could take a picture, because this is assault. I didn't really take her down or anything. But I assaulted an officer. So, it just sounds good when you say it right. So, I ended up going to treatment and getting sober. My first sponsor fired me, and from that day forward, I was willing to do whatever it took to stay here. I just thought that those people that were in treatment were getting much more information than I was, so I was really struggling to learn everything I could by just going 4 hours a night. I was such a victim. I was such a victim because I knew that they were getting much more information, and I wanted to know what they were learning. But what I did was I stuck very close to the treatment center. I stayed at meetings at the treatment center for 18 months. Every night I'd go to a meeting. My friends were like, "Oh, come to this meeting at West Spring Group." And I'm like, I don't know. Come to Champions. Oh, I don't know. A friend did make me go to Champions and get a sponsor, the one I never called. But I learned after that when I got a sponsor, I had to pick somebody that I went to meetings with. So I got a sponsor that I went to meetings with that could see me, that I could see. She knew if I wasn't on the beam. Because I think for me, there's a lot of accountability in that. And like when the Zoom thing happened, people would join Zoom and turn off their cameras and stuff. And I'm like, that's not being in a meeting. So I needed accountability. I needed accountability to what meeting did you go to today? What meeting are you going to tomorrow? What's your plan? And so I learned that at a very early age to make a plan, because I was pretty much fly by the seat of my pants. And don't you know who I am? You know, so I would go to meetings. I'll never forget, someone drugged me to my very first conference and threw me into a hospitality suite and said, make sandwiches and clean the ashtrays. Check. I can do that. So I grew up in sobriety very early, being of service. And so, I don't know, maybe that's just what I think I'm supposed to do in AA now, is be of service. But I can tell you that kept me sober. It made me feel like I had a job to do. It made me feel responsible. It made me feel a part of. And alcoholism is a very lonely disease. You know, I'm a loner. I'm happy working at my desk all by myself all day long. Nobody can yell at me. Once a week I'll call my boss, hey, what's up? I learned to be of service. I learned to participate at all the conferences. I learned to become a part of when I joined AA. And the first word in the 12 steps, we, I didn't comprehend that before I got here. But what you told me was to find the we, to become part of the we, to join, to participate, to become a part of. I really didn't want you to know me when I got here, because I really wasn't like you. And my sponsor had to say to me at a very early in my sobriety, she said, look at the similarities and not the differences. Because I really could say, but you didn't drink like me, and you didn't drink like me, and you didn't drink like me. So, obviously, I don't belong here. Because really, when I got here, I was just going to play your game for 90 days. I was going to get well and go on my merry way and just start drinking like normal again. Because that's what we can do, right? We get well and drink like ladies. Something happened in that first 90 days. Probably started working steps. And when that 90-day period was up, I did not want to take a drink. Whatever I found here, my worst days, sober, were nothing like my best days out there. And I was so grateful to be here. I'll never forget when I got that 30-day chip, and I'm like, how did this happen? How did this happen? How did I get 30 days? And at that moment, I knew I didn't get 30 days. He gave me 30 days. Because left to my own devices, I know how to drink. I don't know how to stay sober that early in sobriety. So I started being open to the idea that there was a power greater than myself. Don't know how that happened, but he creeped in, I really didn't invite him in. He just all of a sudden showed up one day. How dare him? What I can tell you today is that's the best gift I've ever gotten in AA. So I started believing in a power greater than myself. I started not cringing when we would talk about God or a higher power at a meeting. That was important for me, because when I got here, I really didn't want to hear about that. Then I had to make that inventory. I swear, my first inventory must have took 3 years. Don't get any ideas. So, I totally misunderstood what it was all about, What I know today is it is healing for me to do inventory. And like my big book tells me, every company does inventory, right? We have to keep moving the bad stuff out and keeping the good stuff, you know? And so an inventory for me today, I look at it so much different. But back then, I thought I was just supposed to beat myself up for all the stuff I did, all the people I harmed. And that's really not the case. So I did that inventory, and of course, there was that one thing I was never going to tell my sponsor. And sent her on her merry way after talking for 3 or 4 hours, you know. And I called her about a week later. And I said, I really need to chat with you one more time because there's something I left off. And so she said, okay, you know, because it was, why do we think we're so awful? We just think we are so awful. And she's like, that's it? I'm like, that's it. So, you know, I just had lunch with her the other day. I just love her to death. She lives way out of town, and we try to meet up occasionally and still stay in touch. And she knows all my warts, you know? And she still is like, when are we going to meet for lunch? And I'm like, that is the most amazing gift ever, that people love you, warts and all, today, unconditionally. And I learned that in Alcoholics Anonymous. In Alcoholics Anonymous, if I do the work, if I step on somebody's toes, and the minute I become aware of it, I humbly, you know, I go to them and I clean up my side of the street. And I learned all those tools in here. I learned how to be a we in here. I learned how to have fun in here, you know, and go to retreats with silly girls and do silly things and bling shirts and, you know, wear matching pajamas. We just do lots of silly things in here, you know. Went on a 180-mile motorcycle ride the other day. You know, that's what sobriety gives me today, is the freedom to live life. The freedom to live life today. I do not have to be a prisoner. I would not let one person ever say to me what time I'm going to get up, what time I'm going to go to bed, how much I'm going to eat, you know. Because when I was out there, I just didn't eat. I would stay up for days. I wouldn't let anybody talk to me like that, but that's what my drugs and alcohol did for me. In here, I get to make my schedule. What time do you want to get up? 6:30 meeting. I don't know about that. But I'll do the 10:30. But today I have options, you know. I have options today to come to a meeting when it works for me, instead of trying to fit this square peg into a round hole. You know, we have so many choices today that we get to live without being strangled or without being held down and forced to do something against our will. You know, and that I didn't know how to live like that before I got here. I just didn't know how to live like that. What I can tell you today is I have a relationship with a power greater than myself that I do pray to. I do pray. I pray today. Praying I didn't do when I got here. I welcome when other people want to pray with me. We pray before we get on the motorcycles, you know. My husband and I pray even when we're out to eat, you know, before we eat dinner. I try very hard to invite God into my life every day, several times a day. Because when I start running my show, things don't turn out so good, you know. Things just don't turn out for me. And when I get out of my way and I let God be in charge, and I don't always have to like how it's happening, but when I look at the big picture at the end, it always turns out just the way it's supposed to. And that's a miracle today, you know. My husband infuriates me. I'm sure nobody can relate. My husband infuriates me sometimes. But I wouldn't have it any other way. You know, I'm still happy that he's the one in bed beside me every night when we go to bed. We still kiss each other goodnight. You remember when we were talking? You know? People will ask us, how long have you been married? Too damn long. He has given me, he's taught me how to have a sense of humor. You know, when I got here, I was much more rigid than I am now. I know it's hard to believe. But that's what people do in your life, is they teach you how to be flexible. When I got sober, I got rigid, and I thought I just had to be like this the whole time for everything. And then I have people go, oh, let's do this. And I'm like, okay. You know, and I'm like, but I do it, and I had fun doing it, right? And I do it, and it wasn't on my plan today. And I'm like, oh, I really plan to work in the yard today. I don't know. But this was so much more fun. I get to be flexible today. As flexible, I guess, as I can be. I get to have friends today. I get to cry today. I get to laugh today. And what I can tell you is, almost a year and a half ago, my little sister died, and 6 weeks later my dad died. And I'm gonna wrap it up here. But in 6 weeks' time, I lost my little sister, my dad. And in 14 months total, my brother-in-law passed away a couple of December. And through all of that, what I can tell you is never once did I have a desire to take a drink. Never once. For me today, a drink is not the solution, no matter what. I today want to always know that God's in charge. I want to always know that no matter what, I can make it through it. We can make it through it, because me, if it was up to me, might take the drink. But if I keep telling you what's going on, we get me through whatever is going on. You know, no matter what. And when I get to the other side of that, and I'm like having a bad day, it's just a bad day. You know, I'll be sitting at my desk working alone, and I'll just start crying. And it's okay to cry today. It's okay to feel today. I don't have to stuff my feelings today. I don't have to try to be somebody I'm not today. I don't have to be the hood ornament in Clear Lake today. You know, I don't have to be that person today. Today I get to have integrity and honesty and be a friend. And I didn't have any of that before I got here. None. And I don't know how long I've talked.
You have more time.
Oh, no. I've got to stretch it out. Oh, my God, I don't know what to say.
Make up some stuff.
I really thought I was like at the end. It's hot in here.
Tell us the other story about assaulting the officer.
Oh, the real story?
Jail.
One of my greatest gifts in sobriety today is I have been able to go into the Harris County Jail for about 10 years now. So I take meetings into the Harris County Jail. Thank you, Vicki.
You're welcome.
So I take meetings into the Harris County Jail, and that is the greatest gift of all. What I can tell you is the first time I went to jail and that door clanged behind me, I was not okay with that for a minute. But today, it's one of the greatest pieces of service work I do. And since COVID has happened, they've shut down volunteers in the jail, but that's been one of my greatest gifts. Now I'm just making crap up.
Roseanne,
You don't have to talk.
Say it again.
about Roseanne,
Roseanne.
the condo over here, the experience that we went through with this month. Roxanne, good and the bad.
So if you stay here long enough, you will work with women or men who think they want this program, but are not willing to go to any lengths. And I have had the unpleasant experience of some women just not making it, you know? And that's another, that gives me more purpose today to not drink. I think you're talking about the lady that died, right? Yeah. So, yeah. It's sad. It's sad to watch people come in and they can't make it. And I don't want to live like that today. I'm going to open it up for questions. I'm going to let y'all share because I'm done. Oh, thank you.
All right, thank you, Debbie.